secret codes whispered in alpine chalets, clandestine deals between shadowy financiers. It's a cinematic myth we've all grown up with. But beneath the Hollywood glamour lies a stone-cold truth, a quiet, real-world system holding not just billions, but trillions in hidden assets. A world of silent vaults and generational promises. So, how did this tiny, neutral country become the world's banker? What are the real secrets that protect the fortunes of the global elite? And most importantly, is its golden age about to end? I'm Beatrice, and if you, like me, believe the most fascinating stories are the ones whispered just beyond the headlines, then you've come to the right place. And our story begins not with codes and computers, but with chaos. To understand the fortress, you must first understand the storm it was built to withstand. Picture a map of early 18th century Europe. It's a violent patchwork of conflict, with monarchies rising and falling and the continent engulfed in the flames of the War of Spanish Succession. For the royalty and aristocracy, wealth was as fragile as life itself. An army at your border could mean ruin overnight. And in the center of this storm, there was a small, mountainous island of relative calm, Switzerland. In 1713, the Great Council of Geneva made a quiet but revolutionary decision. They passed a decree ordering bankers not to reveal any details about their clients. In a world of spies and shifting allegiances, this was an extraordinary promise. It was the first whisper of a legend. But a promise needs more than words. It needs walls. Switzerland's were the Alps, a near impenetrable geography that discouraged invasion. Then, in 1815, after the Napoleonic Wars, the Congress of Vienna gave it something even stronger, an international guarantee of permanent neutrality. It was a continental seal of approval. You could almost see the lines of wealth, like golden threads, being woven away from the turmoil of France, of Austria, of Prussia, and settling into the serene, secure vaults of Geneva and Zurich. For over a century, this system of discretion and stability worked beautifully. But the 20th century brought new fears, the rise of totalitarian regimes, and the looming threat of another world war. The old promise needed to be forged into an iron law. This is the moment everything changed, the banking law of 1934. It made financial secrecy absolute. It wasn't just a professional courtesy anymore. Revealing a client's identity became a federal crime, punishable by prison. It was a shield of steel. Shortly after, the famed numbered accounts were introduced, severing the last link between a name and their assets. History had provided the foundation, geography had provided the walls, but it was this law that locked the door and created the most private, most secure financial institution the world had ever known. These were the pillars that built the legend. And like any great temple of old, this legend stands upon three immense pillars. They aren't just business strategies, they are, I believe, deeply human principles translated into the language of finance. Understanding them is key to understanding the soul of Swiss banking. The first and most important pillar is, of course, privacy. But this isn't just about keeping secrets. It's about a cultural and legal conviction that your financial affairs are an extension of your personal identity and are therefore sacred. The 1934 banking law was the bedrock, but this wasn't a one-time act. The principle is constantly reinforced, as recently as the 2018 Swiss Financial Services Act. It sends a clear message. In a world of constant surveillance and data breaches, Switzerland offers a haven of digital and legal silence. It's the promise of a quiet life, where your assets don't shout, they whisper. The second pillar is exclusivity. This is the velvet rope. Swiss banking, especially at the highest level, is not a service for the masses. It is a private club, and the bankers are its concierges. They are often called maestros in the symphony of wealth management, conducting complex global assets with a personal human touch that no algorithm can replicate. To understand the sheer scale of this exclusivity, consider one of Geneva's most prestigious institutions, Banque Pictet. In over 2 centuries of existence, it has had only 43 managing partners. That's not a company, it's a dynasty. This rarity creates an aura of desirability that is, in itself, a priceless asset. It tells the world you haven't just made money, you have arrived. And the third pillar, the foundation upon which the entire temple rests, is stability. In a world of volatile markets and political chaos, the Swiss franc is a fortress of fiscal steadiness. It's what's known as a safe haven asset. When crisis hits, money flees to safety, and for centuries, that safety has had a Swiss address. We don't have to look back to the world wars for proof. When the conflict in Ukraine began in early 2022, a wave of uncertainty washed over Europe. In just 2 weeks, the Swiss franc appreciated 5% against the euro. Investors weren't just moving money, they were running for cover to the one place they felt was truly stormproof: privacy, exclusivity, and stability. A temple of financial security built to last for generations. But what happens when criminals and dictators come to worship at this temple? What happens when the silence of the vault is used not to protect a family's legacy, but to hide a nation's stolen treasure? This is the profound and often tragic paradox of Swiss banking. Its greatest strength, its impenetrable secrecy, is also its greatest moral vulnerability. The very system designed to offer sanctuary has, at times, provided shelter for the world's most unsavory characters. The history is uncomfortable, but it must be told. There were the dark accounts linked to Nazi Germany during World War II, and the heart-wrenching issue of assets belonging to Holocaust victims that remained locked in vaults for decades. Then there are the dictators. Perhaps most famously, Ferdinand Marcos, the corrupt president of the Philippines, who is believed to have siphoned billions of dollars from his own people and hidden it away in the quiet, anonymous safety of Swiss accounts. The system that protected old money's dignity also concealed a tyrant's plunder. This is the dark side of the legend, the shadow cast by the very pillars that make it so strong. This is the dark side of the legend, the shadow cast by the very pillars that make it so strong. And sometimes, that shadow looks less like a dictator in a palace and more like a fast-talking wolf on Wall Street. To understand how this works, you must first understand the central role of the Swiss banker. In the legitimate world, they are a client's most trusted confidant, a maestro in the symphony of wealth management, orchestrating every detail of a financial life. It is a relationship built on absolute discretion. But what happens when that relationship goes rogue? Enter Jordan Belfort, the wolf of Wall Street. He had a problem: mountains of illicit cash. He needed them to vanish. The solution? A discreet banker from Geneva's Union Bancaire Privée, or UBP. The plan was something straight out of a spy film. Belfort's associates and their families became human vaults. Imagine the scene. In quiet hotel rooms, they would physically strap stacks of cash to their bodies. A desperate, tactile solution to a digital problem. Then a heart-pounding flight across the Atlantic, walking through customs with millions of dollars hidden beneath their clothes, all to deposit it into the silent, waiting arms of UBP. And the bank's role didn't end there. This wasn't just about hiding cash, it was about transforming it. Belfort famously detailed how his Swiss connection allowed him to withdraw over $50 million, not in traceable currency, but in anonymous, untraceable gold bars, the ultimate disappearing act. The bank wasn't just a vault, it was an alchemist's workshop. turning dirty money into pure, silent gold. This is the reality behind the Hollywood image. It's not always lasers and pressure plates like in Entrapment, or a villain's fortress like in Goldfinger. Sometimes the greatest security isn't a physical barrier, but a simple, legally binding promise to never, ever tell. But what happens when that promise is broken? Not by the bankers themselves, but by the entire world changing the rules around them. This is the story of the 21st century for Swiss banking. The gilded bastion, for the first time in its history, is under siege. The first attack wasn't with armies, but with legislation. In the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, the United States passed a law called FATCA. Soon after, the rest of the world followed with something similar called the CRS. These acronyms may sound boring, but their effect was earth-shattering. Suddenly, the entire world turned a giant, unblinking searchlight onto the vaults of Geneva. Governments could now demand to know what their citizens were hiding. That simple, legally binding promise to never tell was systematically dismantled by international law. The age of don't ask, don't tell in global finance was officially over. And as the walls of secrecy began to crumble, new kingdoms rose to challenge the throne. First, there's Singapore, the smart strategist. It saw the future wasn't about absolute secrecy, but about stability, innovation, and impeccable rule of law. It offers the safety of Switzerland, but built for the digital age, willingly transparent. Then there's Dubai, the flashy magnate. It offers a stark contrast to Swiss discretion. Where Geneva whispers, Dubai shouts from gleaming skyscrapers. It attracts wealth not with quiet promises, but with zero tax policies, dazzling luxury, and a regulatory freedom that feels like a throwback to a bygone era. It's a trade-off. Less of the historic stability for more of the unapologetic ostentation. And finally, Hong Kong, the powerful gateway. For years, it was the undisputed bridge between China's colossal wealth and the global market. But now, with its future intertwined with geopolitical shifts, it represents both immense opportunity and profound uncertainty. It makes you wonder, Switzerland's quiet luxury, Singapore's smart strategy, or Dubai's bold extravagance? If you had to choose a place to safeguard your future, which city would you bet on and why? Let us know in the comments below. Yet perhaps the greatest threat isn't a city or a law, but a line of code. Technology is a double-edged sword. On one hand, cryptocurrencies and blockchain offer a new radical form of anonymity that could, in theory, make banks obsolete. On the other, nimble fintech startups are chipping away at the old guard. They offer slick apps, low fees, and automated investing that makes the traditional Swiss model, the personal maestro crafting a bespoke financial symphony, seem slow and incredibly expensive. It's a battle of philosophies, the revered human touch versus the cold, brutally efficient logic of an algorithm. So, caught between global regulators, hungry new rivals, and the relentless march of technology, Swiss banking finds itself at a profound crossroads. The question is no longer just about protecting wealth, but about protecting its very identity. And so, the story comes full circle. From a fortress of secrecy built for a world that no longer exists, Swiss banking now stands at this profound crossroads. The maestros of old money must learn an entirely new symphony, one played to the modern tune of transparency and speed. If they fail, they risk becoming a magnificent but ultimately silent relic. If you, like me, find a quiet fascination in these deep dives into the hidden worlds of wealth and heritage, I would be so glad to have you with us. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so we never miss our next exploration together. Until next time!